So how do you get your cloth on your frame so it's nice and tight? So in this video, I'm gonna show you how I do it, and there's a couple considerations that you need to take into place, and I'll kind of go through those as we go along. So here, I got an empty frame, and there's a couple things that you wanna make sure that you have in place and ready to go before you even start. Number one, you gotta make sure that your frame and your cloth size match. And here's what I mean by that.
All right, so here's a generic 3D rendering of the frames that I use. See the frames in red, and the blue stuff over here, we're gonna call that primary tufting cloth. Essentially, one of the biggest things you wanna do is you wanna make sure that the cloth that you use, let's say this one here, will fit your frame. Now, let's pretend this is like a 5 foot by 5 foot piece of cloth. If I bring this over here across my frame, you can see that it'll fit my frame for the most part, but there's a lot of extra space down at the bottom there, and there's not a board that goes across on the left side to fully fit the frame. That creates a major problem here when you're trying to stretch your cloth out. Well, it's not going to stretch all the way across the frame like that. Now this other blue piece I got sitting over here, let's go and grab it. Oh, let go of that. Let's bring it in. All right. So let's pretend this is the cloth that I use. It's 40 inches tall by however wide. You just can see when I bring it across here, it'll actually fit my entire frame. Now, yes, there is some extra space over here on the left, as you can see. Normally I would just cut that off, and I actually have a little basket down at the bottom down here I slide it into. So in a frame like this, I can normally get about 2 to 3 rugs on it, depending on how wide the actual rugs are. So with this extra cloth here on the left, I'll either cut that off or whatever, and I'll do another video on what I do with that here in a little bit. But you want to make sure it's going to fit your frame. You're going to have, on every side, there has to be carpet tack strips to make your frame, to make your cloth nice and tight. You can't get away with just using 2 or 3 sides.
All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna undo my cloth here. See, this stuff is super long. There are lines on the cloth, these little yellow lines. I kind of use them as a guide as I go along. Now that I got my cloth all undone, I'm just gonna lightly set it on the frame to kind of get my generalized area. No tightening just yet. Make sure you use the lines to kind of give you a guide to keep everything nice and straight. Keeping the cloth nice and straight definitely helps out when you're tufting. Now that I kind of got the top on, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of push in on the carpet tack strips just to give it somewhat of a grip. And I'm gonna start here in the middle. I'm just gonna pull down lightly just to kind of get it started on the bottom of the frame. Now I always work up and down first and then side to side. So I'll go ahead and just lightly get these in here just so that way the carpet tack strips can grip on the cloth. And then the same for the sides here. I'll just lightly pull it, nothing crazy yet, but just enough so that way there's a little bit of grip. Same thing for the other side. Just a little bit. All right. Now you can see it's holding on there. It's not tight yet. I'm gonna work up and down first because your lines on your tufting machine go up and down. And you really want those lines nice and straight because it helps the machine go up and down nice and straight as well. So since I have that, I'm gonna go ahead and start tightening up the top part. I'm just gonna grab it and pull it up. Trying to keep the lines nice and straight as I go along. Now this part, the corners do get a little tricky because as you lift up on this, it doesn't want to release that. So it starts to do like a weird curve here. Just kind of pop it out and then lift it back up and then reset it back as you were going along. All right, now that this part's done here, I did one side to the left. From the left, I work from this side all the way over, and I'm just gonna move it back this way as well, keeping your lines nice and straight. Now it's not a terrible amount of tension. It's getting tighter, but there's not a terrible amount yet. Now that that's straight, I'm gonna work down at the bottom, working from the middle on the way out. And this is where things are gonna start getting really, really tight. I really grab it and I pull it pretty much as hard as I can and work my way around. But at the same time, trying to keep my line nice and straight to my frame. And here's what I'll do. I'll grab right here, pull down, use my other hand to help pull it down. You really got to get this nice and tight. So you guys can see my lines are starting to straighten out a little bit as I go along. Same thing on the corner. You may have to pop it a little bit just to prevent that little angle from happening. Because it will curve around the corner because it's holding up here at the same time. Now that we got this side done, I'm going to move on to that side over here. All right, now the frame is definitely tighter, not as tight as it still needs to be. We need to do the outsides and stretch them outwards. All right, and on this part here, I'm gonna work from the middle. I'm gonna grab it and pull as hard as I can and stretch out, working it all the way down. You gotta kind of pop it out and pull, pop it out and pull. And on the corners, you may have to re-stretch a little bit right there. But this has to be as tight as you can get it. See that? It's a little bit tighter, getting there. But now this side's tight, but we gotta do the other side. We do have a lot of extra cloth sitting here, but that's perfectly okay right now. I'll do a video on what I do with the excess later. But here, we're gonna do the same thing on this side, grab it and pull. Now you got a really tight cloth. You can go ahead and get started tufting. Let me know if this helps you out.